Have you ever been able to go to an FEI World Championship competition, or been able to go to a different country in Europe to be at an equestrian competition? Well, I did, and I want to share that experience with you. Hi, I'm April. I'm an equestrian, and I own an equine-inspired business. Today, I wanted to share one of the coolest experiences I got to do, and that was to travel to Hungary. I believe it's called Kispur, Hungary, and go to an FEI World Championship. I was very fortunate to go there to support Mary Phelps. I had actually worked for Mary Phelps in the past, and she needed some assistance and help at the show, and she had been working in training in the Netherlands, and she was going down to Hungary, and at that time I was living in Germany, so what better time, and it just all worked out. I'm in Europe, and Hungary was just a jump over, so just jump on the plane and go. So this FEI World Championship was for combined driving for ponies. They do have a combined driving for the regular size horses, but this was for the ponies. They do the competitions within. You have the singles, you have the pairs, and then you have the team, and the team is usually 4 horses or ponies in this instance. Mary she was competing pairs that weekend, and she brought 4 horses with her overseas, but she brought 3 to this particular competition. 3 that went with her were Kimba, that was her little bear. She barely was tall enough to compete. And then we had Al Capone and Bugsy Maloney. They call the guys the gangsters of the ponies. So it's a cute little thing. They all went through their jog and got vet inspected while I was actually flying over to, I flew into Vienna, and then Wayne, Mary's husband, picked me up, and we went and drove to Hungary. It wasn't that bad of a drive. I believe it was only like 2 hours or such, so it was cheaper to fly into Vienna than to try to fly to Hungary and deal with that traveling. So when I first arrived, I got to meet all of the team members that kind of support the U.S. You have somebody from the USA Equestrian, which is everything that I'm wearing here. Then you have the chaperone that kind of makes sure everybody's on their schedule, make sure everybody's in a good mood or in really good spirits. There was 2 people from the U.S. there. There was Mary, who was competing in the pairs, and then another gal that was competing in the singles. She was competing in Ford that was owned by somebody else. We had 2 big tractor or truck and trailers there that were kind of like right in the U.S. area. We were really close to the tent, so we had gotten there pretty early, and where all the events and the food and such, and being able to walk to the arenas, we were really close to that. The only downfall to that is that I stayed on the grounds at night, and they had a party like every night, and I did do some of the partying, but not so much because I was exhausted by the end of the day. The party would go on forever. Thankfully, I was so tired that I would be able to fall asleep, but I was able to hear it all night. But back to the first night when I got there, we did a spirit night within that area, and it was like kind of like foods and such that are from your country. We were gonna do KFC, but then I guess we wanted to order too much at one of the restaurants, so they thought we were crazy and kicked them out of the restaurant. So then I think we ended up doing like grilled cheeses or peanut butter, because peanut butter, I didn't realize, is not really a staple in other countries. And it was just kind of cool to see all the other countries and what they brought. So as I mentioned, I was staying in like one of those, I know they call them the vans in Europe, but it was like a big all-in-one like truck and living quarters and trailer all in one kind of thing, and it was huge, and it was very luxury, like top of the line. I actually stayed in it by myself during the night times. Mary and Wayne went back to the hotel just so, staying away from the noise and such. But I loved staying in it. I actually stayed up the top of the loft. And then there was just, I might be able to share some pictures. It just was immaculate how huge this was and just how fancy it was. it definitely was great to be in there during the week and be able to relax when I was able to. So some of the things that I did while I was there to help kind of assist Mary during this huge competition, like once in a lifetime opportunity. I actually walked the ponies. I had to walk all 3 of them every morning. I probably did it twice or 3 times a day, depending on the day, on whether or not she was competing or not, just to make sure that the horses were staying in a good mood, getting some exercise, being able to stretch their legs and get to see what's all on the grounds. I usually would walk 2 of the ponies at a time. So then that left with where I would walk 1 of the ponies. So I was doing a lot of walking. So my feet were super sore by the end of this trip because we didn't have a bicycle, but it was all uphill to go to the barn, and we were almost at like one of the last barns when you would go up the hill. So not only was I walking them down the hill, then walking them around everywhere, it was just a lot of walking. But it was fun kind of hanging out with the horses and getting to know them. I did help make sure that the stall stayed clean. They're paint ponies, or pinto ponies, and they had a lot of white. So making sure their stalls stayed really clean so they did not get any poop stains was very important. They kept their sheets and their blankets on them, depending on how bad the weather was or how cold it was. Trying our best to make sure they stayed white. Other things that I kind of helped with is I brought them down to be prepared to tack up. I couldn't do all the tacking because I didn't know. I had helped her before in the past with putting all the driving equipment on, but that was one thing I didn't want to mess up. There was a few things I could help with, but I tried to know when I needed to be helping and know when I needed to kind of stand back. I did clean a lot of the tack, and there was a lot of tack. She used different harnesses almost for every competition, and even after. So I cleaned them before, and I wanted to clean them after, so that way when they went home they were clean too. So I did a lot of cleaning, and I did help a little bit with the feed. Mary was there with, she had, like I said, was training with the people in the Netherlands, and I was kind of helping them a little bit with feeding, but they kind of already knew the system down, so I was just kind of letting them do it and helping get the feed to the horses. I was going in the evenings, checking on the horses, just making sure that the horses were staying happy and were in a good mood. I would wash them after they would get worked. The gals would make sure that they got braided and looked super pretty. They could pretty much braid, I don't know, in just a couple minutes, the horses would be ready to go and compete. And I guess a couple other things I did, I would definitely help untack them. I understood, like, how we wanted to hang them up, the harnesses and such. I would make sure that I would stand in front of the horses when Mary was getting on and off the cart, and whenever they were kind of doing stuff with the cart, and wanted to make sure the horses weren't going anywhere. I was just doing whatever I needed to do to make sure that her experience and the pony's experience was the best that it could be. I wouldn't quite call myself a groom just because I wasn't braiding them. I wasn't completely tacking them up. I was going up, brushing them, doing as much as I could to help that experience be a lot easier for Mary. And it was probably one of the coolest experiences. I mean, each day I was definitely exhausted by the end of the day. I didn't take a lot of breaks, probably just enough to make sure I got some food in my system. So to kind of go through what happened on the 3 days. So in combined driving, there's 3, some of you all may know this, but in combined driving, there's 3, it's a 3 event thing. Kind of like 3-day eventing, but for combined driving, it's the dressage, the obstacles, and then the cone driving. Dressage, Mary ended up driving Al, Deponi, and Bugsy Maloney, and so they did really well. I can't even remember their scores. I may be able to put it up in here, and I'll be sharing some pictures too as I am talking about all this. They were super pretty. They had the great braids and such. And I would make sure I'd have their groom bucket, and if anything that we needed to make sure, if anything needed to be wiped off, I had all of that. We had like little, Mary loves using the gum bits, so we made sure those were easily accessible, is that they got those. And it was just so cool to be on the grounds at this place. They had a huge, beautiful arena, And it was really cool to see a horse event in Europe because a ton of people would show up to these events. Even at like a dressage event for this, like the stands were full and like from all different countries. And one thing I did forget to mention was like the first day when they did the welcome ceremony and all these different countries coming in. And I didn't realize how big of a rivalry I guess there was for driving between the Dutch and the Germans. So that was really cool to witness. And the whole weekend seeing who's ahead of who and like what country and such. I think the Germans did end up winning that weekend. I can't quite remember, but it was like toe to toe both times, or you could tell throughout the whole weekend. It was definitely, you could hear the whispers and such about what was going to go on between those two countries. And then for day 2 for obstacles, I don't even know if it was day 2. There might have been 2 days of dressage, and then there was 2 days of dressage, but we didn't do the first day of dressage. We did the second day, and then on the third day she actually did obstacle. So there's some really cool obstacles. And while she wasn't studying for dressage or whatever, Mary would walk around constantly trying to figure out what the best ways to go around the course was for each one of them. You have the A and the B, like how are you going to get around, what's best for your ponies, what's best for your cart. You want to get the fastest speeds in these sections. And her trainer was Bram, who's world championship, and he's won ponies before and with the large horses. So it was really cool to experience working with him. So that was really neat. I even got to ride on the back of the cart while he was driving, while we were doing some of the training and exercises, warm up and practice time. I was behind him or riding on the back of the cart while he was driving. I believe it was Kimba. So that was a really neat experience for sure. But he definitely helped a lot with making sure that Mary was going to be as best as prepared as she could be for the obstacles. I believe he was, I'm trying to use the right term for this, he was her guide, so he was on the back of the cart to make sure that, they had a little watch there to know how long they're taking to get around the course, but as well as how long it's taking them to get into obstacles. There's little timers. I'll even put in some videos here too. There's even little timers that you see at the beginning of as soon as they get into an obstacle and as soon as they get out of the obstacle, and seeing how long that takes them. And Mary has smaller ponies, so sometimes that's a benefit where she can move faster, but sometimes it's not, depending on the legs and such. So it is interesting to see when she goes through the courses compared to some of the other ponies. But we ended that day pretty well. She did drive Kimba and Al. A lot of times you hear Bram yelling at Kimba to, straighten up, behave, because she is a ball of energy. Mary actually kind of rescued her in a way. She was at the Kentucky Horse Park for when they would do like their breed days and breed parades and such, but Kimba wasn't probably the best person to have around new people that weren't horse people, because she can be a little bit of a feisty one, but her personality is awesome, and she definitely makes up for her personality when she's in the cart and such. Kind of funny, you do hear Bram yelling at Kimba quite a bit to behave, but for such a little one, she's full of energy. And then I think she lost one shoe when they were doing their back circle or getting ready to warm up. She actually lost one of her shoes, so we had to take off her other shoe and kind of trim her up right before her vet check, and then so she could go on with the competition. One of the things they had taken out of this competition was the water obstacle. I believe one horse had taken a bad fall in it and was okay, and then another horse took a really bad fall in it, and I think ended up having to go to like an emergency vet. I don't even know what happened really, but I think it was a really pretty serious injury, and maybe one that it would not come back from. So after I think the second horse went and had that injury, there was a long pause for a while with the courses and such, but they ended up deciding they weren't going to do that obstacle anymore. All right, so on the last day, and probably one of the best days, was cone day. So what this is, if you're not familiar, is that there's an obstacle out there, and there's cones, and the cart has to go in between these cones. Like there's a set distance by the FEI, and it might change depending on pairs, singles, and such, depending on cart sizes and such. I'm not familiar with all of that. And I think there's some that are actually smaller and they have the red balls on top of them, so you may know that they're going to get smaller. And so what they're like tennis size balls on top of the cones, and what those do is pretty much like as you're going around these cones and you're having to make sharp turns and such, you have to make sure that you're going through them so that your wheel isn't hitting them or your cart's not hitting them. That knocks off the ball, and then that increases your speed or increases your time, and you're going around this obstacle at a very like steady pace, if not a really fast pace. I don't remember how early it was. It might have been middle of the day that she was going, but it was a really cool experience because she showed Al and Kimba again. I cleaned a lot of the harnesses. I can't even remember what harness we ended up using, but and then Wayne was on the back of the cart this time for her, and because you got to remember the obstacle too, so you got to remember the course. So the night before she was practicing that, because they had only put it up like the day before, the evening before, because they had actually been using that area for the obstacle part as well. You have a shorter bit of time to actually practice this obstacle compared to the other one, and Mary actually did super well at this competition. Like, that she won it for the pairs. That was probably one of the coolest things, because we all were thinking, oh, the US, we're not going to stay for the award ceremony. Like, we're not, there's no point. Well, we did stay for the award ceremony because Mary Phelps had won it for the pairs. and Ponies. And we, you know, they kept saying fastest speed all day was Mary. And, you know, it was just like nerve-wracking constantly hearing, you know, like, is there somebody going to be beat that time? She had a really great time. I mean, did she have a fault? She may have one, or like a time fault, I think is what she had maybe. And she hadn't knocked any balls off, I can't remember, to be honest. I'd have to double check. And I think I have that video too, and I'll be sharing that. She got a really cool plaque for winning, and like I think even a medal and such. It was really cool to stay for the awards ceremony. I ended up going back to the hotel with the two, like the chaperone and the U.S. equestrian gal, so I could leave out to the airport the next day. But it was, I'm really thankful for Mary for letting me to come to that competition. I'm really thankful that I was in Germany, that was able to happen. I'm really cool. It was really cool to get some of this swag. I even got one of my favorite things was this awesome USA jacket from Ariat. Probably one of my favorite jackets. Got two of these awesome shirts, a vest, and an awesome hat. It was just so cool to represent the USA in a really big competition like this, because there's only like two of us, two competitors, and in other countries, you know, driving is a much bigger deal. So, and it's pretty expensive to, you know, now you have to get your carts over there, your horses over there, trained before you get there. So it can be, it can be a lot. So I'm just, like I said, I'm very thankful for Mary for letting me able to experience such an awesome competition, and I hope in the future that I will be able to do something else fun with her and the ponies and such, because she has really cool gangsters. And later on that year, I knew at that time too that they were going to be a Breyer horse, but it was kind of secretive. But later on that year, two of the guys became Breyer horses. I actually have another one of these, and my daughter loves playing with them. I believe this is Tony Deponi and Bugsy Maloney. So Tony is one that didn't go to the competition. He actually stayed in the Netherlands while the competition happened. He's one of the younger guys. Bugsy Maloney, the one in the back, actually competed in the dressage. He was actually one of my favorites because he is just very sweet. He's just a sweet guy. But I believe they have out on the back of this, so that's kind of cool. But it was just really awesome to, like I said, be a part of this. And then now I have the Breyers, and I need Mary to sign this when I see her next time. My daughter plays with these ponies. The only downside about having the pony legs is that they do break a little easier when you're playing with them. My daughter found that out. I think it was Tony's legs, but I'm not sure. This one of his legs. But that's why I have one still in a box, and I think my mom still has one in a box. And I'll, like I said, make sure Mary signs this, because it's so cool to know that, like, I worked with a horse at the World Championships that is now a Breyer. So that's really neat. If you want to see more of my travel videos, you can see them in the cards up below. I'll put them in the description box below too. I have one of Iceland. My Spanish riding school one should be out now. If not, it'll be out soon. I have lots more travel videos coming up. But if you like this, let me know. Leave a comment below if you've done any fun traveling with horses as a groom or anything. I'd love to know. But again, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.